if we're talking about right now, in this market cycle in the short term, I mean, yeah, you are kind of late. But if we zoom out and we look at the grand scheme of what's going on, then this hasn't even started yet. So no, you're not too late to crypto, but I need you to pay close attention. Because if you don't understand the things that I'm about to go over, then this isn't going to end well for you anyway. None of what I'm about to say is financial advice, and this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The first thing that we have to fully understand is that when it comes to fiat currencies like the dollar, there will only ever be more and more in existence. The monetary base of a fiat currency system is designed to expand. This is the only way for a debt-based economy to continue. Governments have to print money in order to sustain these debt-based economies. Now, on the other hand, we have Bitcoin, where it has a fixed supply, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Now, but Bitcoin isn't worth anything. So you can have a limited supply of something that's not worth anything and it's still worthless. Right. Well, the reality is that as it stands today, Bitcoin is the 7th largest asset in the world. Yeah, but Bitcoin doesn't have any intrinsic value. Okay, let's say that it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Nor does the US dollar. The only value that the US dollar has is that it is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, and you can use it to pay your taxes and to pay down debt. Now, let's say that the United States government decides one day that you could use Bitcoin or any other crypto to pay your taxes or your debt. Then what? Then you have the same exact system, except you have a finite supply of these assets that can now be used to pay off your debt or to pay taxes. Now what? Now let's touch on why some people do believe that Bitcoin does have value. The thing is that we need to rethink value in this digital age that we live in today. Bitcoin is a network that is practically impossible to hack. It is accessible to anyone in the world, and it can be used to send value over the internet without anyone being able to censor that action. On top of that, so far, it has served as a much better store of value than any other kind of currency on the planet. And in this sense, Bitcoin is a sort of digital utility. You could think of it like fiber optics cables that allow us to get the internet, or cell towers that allow us to have cell reception. Except in particular, we can use this Bitcoin network to send value without anyone being able to stop it. And now, just because you don't see value in a network like this doesn't mean that someone in Venezuela who's dealing with government censorship or hyperinflation doesn't see value in Bitcoin. Now back to my main point. Let's take a look at the chart of M2, which is considered a measure of broad money supply. If you look closely, it only goes up. Now let's look at the supply of Bitcoin. You see how it kind of rounds off at the end? That's because Bitcoin is what's called disinflationary, meaning that the amount of Bitcoin coming into circulation decreases over time. And so every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that comes into circulation is cut in half. Now let's talk about the implications of this. So far, the demand for Bitcoin has only gone in one direction. As more and more people utilize this network and understand the value that it brings, when you have a fixed supply of an asset and an ever-increasing demand, there is only one thing that can occur. There's no guarantees, but let's talk about how this has played out so far. You have the Bitcoin Pizza Day, celebrating a day when a software developer in 2010 decided to pay 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza. Now at that time, that 10,000 Bitcoin was somewhere around the value of $41. Now today, if you look at the charts, you might have noticed that Bitcoin is a little bit more valuable than that. And that same amount of Bitcoin is worth over $1 billion. today. That software developer paid $1 billion for a pizza. But let's talk about something that might be a little bit more relevant to you. The price of a house. Over time, the amount of Bitcoin that you have needed to buy a home has continued to decrease. There is no guarantee that this will happen in the future, but if it continues to go in the way that it has, then not owning Bitcoin would be eroding your purchasing power and killing your chances of being able to purchase a home. There's no guarantee that this will continue in the future, but if it were to continue, then it would mean that you would want to change the denomination through which you are looking at your wealth. If you wanted to protect your purchasing power in a world where fiat debasement is the standard, then it may make sense to measure your wealth in Bitcoin. Oh, but the government would never allow this to happen, right? Some argue that it can't necessarily be stopped. Regardless, this is what has already occurred. The point is this. If things were to continue into the future the way that they have gone so far, then you could never be too late. When you have fiat debasement at an infinite level, and you have a finite space where the demand for this space is increasing, there's only one direction for all of that value to flow. And this is why some people say that you should never sell crypto. And now, I understand that, but it gets a little bit deeper than that, and more on that in a little bit. Most of what I have said so far was specifically about Bitcoin, but in reality, a lot of the same principles apply for all of crypto. You can argue with me about it in the comments. The second thing that is really important to understand is that when it comes to the adoption of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, we are extremely early. It's estimated that less than 600 million people on the planet even own crypto right now, which is less than 15% of the global population. Most people have no idea what is going on yet. The adoption of new technologies tends to follow what's called an S-curve. The innovators are the first 2.5% of a population to start to adopt a new technology. And then you have the early adopters, which is the next 13.5%. And this is around where we are now. We're still very early. Next, you have the early majority, which is the next 34% of people that will adopt this new technology. And then you have the late majority being the next 34%. And then you have the laggards being the final 16%. Now, the thing about how this looks like it's going to work out in blockchain is that we're going to have a huge flood of people entering the market without necessarily even knowing that that's what's happening. Let's just imagine for a second that all of these large institutions, the banks, and even the big tech companies start to adopt and offer this technology to its users and customers. What could easily happen is that these digital currencies are actually issued to people that use these platforms without them ever even necessarily asking for it. In the banking side, there's proof of actual infrastructure that's been built out that would allow a bank to issue a stablecoin to a user and have it be backed one-to-one with their deposits on the normal traditional side of the system. And so if they wanted to use a stablecoin version of their money, they could use the stablecoin version. If they wanted to use the traditional version, they could use that. And it might not necessarily be just up to the user. A lot of this is going to be seamless if this is how it goes down, and the user won't necessarily know which one's being used, and they'll just send what they need to send however they need to send it. Maybe they'll have the choice, maybe they won't. Now let's look at the tech platforms. If you've paid attention to what's happened in decentralized finance or in the blockchain space in general, you have this concept called an airdrop, where your wallet can receive a digital currency from some issuer without necessarily asking for it. And in this scenario, you could all of a sudden wake up and have a bunch of digital currency in your wallet. So whether people are choosing to or not, it's very likely that this technology is going to be adopted very rapidly whenever these large institutions and tech platforms decide to take these kinds of actions to bring people in. Oh, but this stuff is all way too complicated, and so people are never going to adopt it. Well, maybe a few years ago I would have understood a little bit better where you're coming from. But right now, it's starting to become even more clear that people won't really know that this stuff is happening. It's just going to occur in the background while people go about their lives as if nothing ever changed. Now, the reality is this hasn't happened yet, and you're not too late. But to be honest, right now, When it comes to the market, yes, we are in an extremely elevated time in the market where, quite frankly, a lot of people who have been in this game for a long time, guess what they're doing? They're taking risk off the table. None of this is financial advice. I'm just trying to provide some perspective. I do not have a crystal ball, and I don't know what's going to happen next. The issue across all risk assets right now, and that means both equities and crypto and so on, is that even though valuations and prices are at all-time highs, there is a chance that while risk is the highest it's ever been, it's actually the lowest it will ever be because of the constant printing and monetary debasement. Also, the Fed put, meaning that when anything goes wrong, it's very likely that the Fed is going to come in and just support the markets. One of the most risky decisions could be to sit on the sidelines because markets might not necessarily turn around ever, and if they do, the government's going to back them. Now, so far, for cryptocurrency, it's a little bit of a different game because it does move in these 4-year cycles. So you still have to keep that in mind while all of this other stuff is happening on the macro environment. I'm just trying to provide some perspective. This is not financial advice. Cryptocurrency, so far, it goes through these exuberant times where prices get elevated, and then after that, they roll over and for years to come. Now, a lot of people are calling for a supercycle, where crypto has all of these changes that are happening with the legislation and so on, and therefore, it's only going to continue to go up from here. It is always different this time in the moment. Every single cycle, there's some reason why things are different this time and prices are not going to follow the same patterns that they did in the past. The problem with expecting a super cycle is that if you're wrong about that, then the impact of that could be devastating. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know that having that mindset is by far the most dangerous mindset to have. And that is how people round trip, meaning that you see all these gains throughout the bull run just to watch it all turn over and you go right back to where you came from and maybe even worse. I'm not a financial advisor and none of this is financial advice. You do not have to navigate this alone. We're going over the global macroeconomic situation, how technology plays a role in what's happening in the economy, and we're sharing our insights together inside of my paid community. If you are interested in that at all, just check out the link in the description. However you go about it, the only thing that I recommend is that you take the time to fully understand this technology and why it matters. I want you to go down that rabbit hole, and I do not want you to come back until you figure it out. If you just have to get involved financially, then consider dollar cost averaging, where you just set aside a specific amount for every month or every week, and you place that where you want to put it. That way, you're not trying to time the market. You're just allowing yourself to participate in where the future is headed. The amazing thing right now is that if you don't fully understand how to use the technology, you don't even have to in order to participate anymore. You have these ETFs, so you can start to put your money into these ETFs. And then from there, you can use your retirement accounts and so on without having to worry about whether or not you've lost your private keys or something like that. You are not too late to understand what is happening. You are not too late to make decisions that will change your future and your family's future for decades and generations to come. The data tells us that things are only moving in one direction. What I want you to think about is what if the system has already collapsed and we're just waiting for the rest of the world to figure that out?